Welcome everybody to 52 Living Ideas. Give me a second. Let me unmute everybody. Yeah. All right. Welcome everybody to 52 Living Ideas. Today, we are going to be focusing on poems. The format is that in the beginning, everybody gets to read the poems that speak to them, after which we go into breakout rooms to discuss the poems. Maybe Margaretha and Allison will have some ideas about what we can do in the breakout rooms. Then when we come back, we talk about the poems that spoke to us, as well as what poetry does for us. Anything that you noticed in the breakout rooms that you liked. All right, so that's what we're going to do. Let's get started. We will start, as always, with Margaretha talking about the featured poem. Go ahead.
Good evening. So the featured poem today is The Laws of God, the Laws of Man by A.E. Housman. The laws of God, the laws of man, he may keep that will and can. Not I, let God and man decree laws for themselves and not for me. And if my ways are not as theirs, let them mind their own affairs. Their deeds I judge and much condemn, yet when did I make laws for them? Please yourselves, say I, and they need only look the other way. But no, they will not, they must still wrest their neighbor to their will and make me dance as they desire with jail and gallows and hellfire. And how am I to face the odds of man's bedevilment and God's? I, a stranger and afraid, in a world I never made. They will be master, right or wrong, though both are foolish, both are strong. And since, my soul, we cannot fly to Saturn nor to Mercury, keep we must, if keep we can, these foreign laws of God and man. So I chose this poem because in a way, it resonates to me with some of our current climates. The idea of so many people existing in the world today that are at the mercy of less benevolent powers and machinations. This poem specifically, they're talking about the laws of God and the laws of man. And I was really touched by the idea of, we are, all of us, affected by things that others do. And in the poem, the author is trying to say, no, this is not for me. I wash my hands of this. But then at the very end, he's like, well, maybe I'm gonna go with some of this because I don't have quite the tools I need to truly escape. And I think that in some way or form, we all find ourselves in this situation. And we all, it's like a roller coaster ride. You go through this, no, that's not me. Somebody else made that decision. And then that slow, almost painful realization that even though it was not your decision and it's not something you would uphold, you have to abide. It's kind of like in the United States, the Constitution dictates that the manner in which the president is decided means that even if that wasn't the person for whom you voted, that's your president. You can't run around saying it's not, because so long as you reside within this land, the laws dictate you will honor this person as the president. And that's necessary, right? If we wish to live in a civilized world, we have to abide by certain laws. And the interesting thing here is, to me, I, a stranger and afraid, in a world I never made. I usually read the poem as it being that of laws imposed upon me, but it also could be looked at those immigrants who have to travel away from their land or choose to travel away from their land and the very hard battle that they have to fight with themselves to get used to all that is new and different. And they willingly do so because the benefits of this new place will outweigh the non-benefits, but it still causes some type of dissonance. And so that's what this poem means to me here, that the eternal human struggle between what we want to uphold and how we balance that with the necessary things that we must abide by. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you. All right, who would like to read next? Go ahead and type an exclamation mark to read a poem that speaks to you. We'll start with Joe. Joe, go ahead.
So this is a poem written by I'm assuming somebody that's in high school, and he wanted actually a national writing project. It was part of a national writing project, and it was actually kind of builds on what Margaretha was talking about. It is titled Refugee, and it goes, I am a refugee, forced to leave my home where I belong, forced to leave the home where I grew up, forced to leave the school where I learned. The Civil War brought bombings and battles, which drove my family away. Entire cities left destroyed by the fighting. The war is not ending anytime soon. Now I must leave my country and heritage to someone new. Now me and my people are all leaving for nowhere. We have nowhere to stay. There is nowhere to help, no one to help us. No other country seems to care. Escaping the war didn't mean escaping the problems. The winter brings harsh, cold nights, and the meals are a mystery. Spending my life worrying about the war doesn't allow time for anything else. We don't go to school and we don't play games. I don't get to learn about why I must leave. The time is never my own. I must always run. There are, however, people who help me. They build shelters and homes. The food is less scarce. They give me somewhere to stay, a protection from the cold. I am a refugee forced from my home. I am a refugee traveling forever with no place to go. I am a refugee, but I'm not alone. There are people who help me, and that gives me hope. And obviously, for obvious reasons, I mean, it wasn't necessarily the most beautifully written poem, but it was the most meaningful to me that I'd come across at this particular moment in time. Somebody had talked to me this morning about how she was opening up her home and trying to open up shelters as much as she can to bring in refugees from Syria, or not Syria. This was about Syria actually, but from the Ukraine. And I tried to put things in perspective, and I sometimes think like, okay, things are not going my way, but imagine if your house was destroyed today, and imagine that you had to pack up everything and take everything that you and everybody you loved and leave, and you don't really know what's going to happen next. And I think that having that perspective kind of gives you an appreciation for what you have and where you are, no matter how difficult your circumstances are. I also have known people personally who have actually had to flee persecution from the USSR, and this is back in the 80s. So that this was, again, these are individuals that come with absolutely nothing. I know another family that had to come had to flee Argentina when there was a financial crisis. So I've been around people that have had to leave under really difficult circumstances, and seeing some of the videos today, or some of the newscasts today. It's really hard for me to watch those videos and not walk away truly moved. And I looked at a few different refugee poems. They're either 10 pages long or they're but this particular individual seemed like he really captured what it was like, and also the importance of helping as well.
Thank you, Joe. Next,
I'm sorry,
go
really
ahead.
quickly, can you tell me by whom it was?
His name is Nathan. I can actually send you the poem itself. It's some writing project, so I'll send it to you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is going to be Mike, followed by Allison. Folks, go ahead and type exclamation mark to share a poem that you like. Mike.
The poem I chose is called Crossing the Bar by Alfred, Lloyd, Tennyson. Sunset and evening star, and one clear call for me. And may there be no moaning of the bar when I put out to sea. But such a tide as moving seems asleep, too full for sound and foam, when that which drew from out the boundless deep turns again home. Twilight and evening bell, and after that the dark. And may there be no sadness of farewell when I embark. For though from out are born of time and place, the flood may bear me far, I hope to see my pilot face to face when I have crossed the bar. From what I know about Tennyson, what little I know, he evidently wanted this poem to come near the end of his all of his life's work. He had written several poems after this, but this one is clearly a clear metaphor of the sandbar, like a crossing for him from the harbor out to sea, meeting his pilot face to face. Is my assumption that he's meeting God. And I also liked the way he used the word or the line, and may there be no sadness of my farewell, which kind of brought in my mind that he had faith. Because I think if people are facing their own death at some point, and then you're telling your loved ones, don't cry or not, don't let sadness kind of envelop everything, you're kind of telling everybody that what's coming your way or what you're about to approach is something positive. Because if it wasn't positive, or if it was unknown or chaotic, then you would probably be part of the sadness of you leaving. So I took that kind of literally, like he was just telling people, don't feel sad for this passing. It's a natural place. And I felt like he had some faith. On a technical note, as I had mentioned in our first meetup, I am so new to poetry, but I picked up just the essence of there being metaphor a couple of times, and then I noticed the rhyming patterns were there, and then it turns out I just did a touch of research that it turns out that everybody who's poetic, there's this very organized way of rhyming in poetry, and I almost did not want to go further and learn more about it because I didn't want to feel too technical about what I was reading. I was just trying to pull away initially just the feeling I got from the poem.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, Mike. Next up is Allison.
Okay, so this one is called Ship's Manifest by Amanda Gorman, who she's the poet who spoke at Biden's inauguration, the young woman. Allegedly, the worst is behind us. Still, we crouch before the lip of tomorrow, holding like a headless hand in our own house, waiting to remember exactly what it is we're supposed to be doing. And what exactly are we supposed to be doing? Penning a letter to the world as a daughter of it? We are writing with vanishing meaning, our words water dragging down a windshield. The poet's diagnosis is that we have lived, has already warped itself into a fever dream, the contour of its shape stripped from its murky mind. To be accountable, we must render an account, not what was said, but what was meant. Not the fact, but what was felt, what was known even while unnamed. Our greatest test will be our testimony. This book is a message in a bottle. This book is a letter. This book does not let up. This book is awake. This book is awake. For what is a record but a reckoning? The capsule captured, a repository, an arc. Sorry, but my voice is like, they're getting rid of the masks this week. So it's like screaming through it. N95 has been hard for a year. An arc articulated, and the poet, the preserver of ghosts and gains, our demons and dreams, our haunts and hopes, here's to the preservation of a light so terrible. What I really liked about this was I feel like it really captured this moment in time. I know I read an article in the New York Times that talked about this feeling of languishing, that as we're coming out of the pandemic, that we're not quite happy, but we're not really in a state of depression, and we don't really know where to go with it. And I think I know she wrote this fairly recently, but then I think with the even more recent events of this couple weeks, it's even more so that we kind of like, we don't really know what to do or where to go. But what I like about this is that she's talking about the importance of writing about this time and remembering it. And I know a lot of artists have been struggling with, do they include this in their work, or do they avoid the pandemic? Because we all want to escape. We want to just move on, but yet we can't. And we need, and I know for myself, I have a journal that I've been writing in kind of on and off my whole life, but I've written far more in the last 2 years than I had but for a while. And I felt like I want the next generations to know what this felt like. Like they'll read about it in history books, but they need to know what that felt like on a very personal level. And so this poem really spoke to me.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, Allison. Next up is Bob, Margaretha, and Rico. Bob.
Okay. Am I allowed to read my own poem?
Yes, yes, you're welcome to read your own.
Okay. Usually my poems are roses are red, violets are blue, but this one's more serious. It's called The Heron. Just a little background. The heron is a large, beautiful bird, and it's endangered in my state. And I happen to have a koi pond. The koi are ornamental fish. So the poem's called The Heron. It killed what I loved. My neighbor told me he shot it. It came to my shore wounded. In desperation, I finished it off. It died slowly, I thought. I see it there dead. I feel the pain of its death. It is now innocent. It can't kill anything. What did I do? It had a precious life. It couldn't help what it did. It took away what it took away. I don't know why I did it. It's kill or be killed. That's it.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Bob. Folks, everybody is welcome to share their own poems, and we'll get a chance to discuss all the poems in the breakout rooms and afterwards. Next up is Margaretha, Rico, and Paul. Margaretha.
Hello.
Hi.
After reading the poem, the central poem of meeting, I remember the poem I made after reading Sartre, Existentialism is Humanism. And that was the time during early pandemic. I was straight into lockdown just right after I arrived in Melbourne. So it was a difficult time for me. It's supposed to be in Bahasa Indonesia. I try my best to translate. So here it is. On being human, don't get it wrong. You and I are free. All is meaningless. The future is virgin. You and I will suffer. We are stranded, weak and abandoned. all is meaningless unless you and I decide us to exist. Wishing in time for me to choose my path, I will construct my world wide because I am empty unless I put a meaning into my breath. You don't need to turn and round because you are the one who is chasing yourself. No need to be afraid of scorns and live as coward or a bastard. Bad luck, swearing, or empty words. Ignore those pretentious mouths because all is meaningless. You have to meet you at the end of the road. I am too looking for a glimpse of pieces of me there. After wounds, fatigue, sweat, and pain, we walk. Then we know the meaning of you and about me. Only you created, even God doesn't need to know. So it was just like our discussion last week. Sometimes after reading something, you just have the energy, you need to do something. I think Sartre's book was really amazing at that time because I was down. I didn't know what to do. I was planning to go back home and do not apa. I don't want to continue my study. But then I realized this is not just about taking our faith and do our life, but what do I want to fill my life with? What do I want to become? And that is the essence on what I want to do. So we cannot blame God even for that. Yeah, that's my poem. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, Margaretha. Next up is Rico. Rico, go ahead.
All right. This one's just called, like, I don't really got a title for it, but I'm just gonna go ahead and start. Joseph, you're so funny. Your laugh reminds me of my money. Your head is long as shit, and yet you are legit. Through this message may seem strange. I got you the backwood. Let's make a mess.
Thank you. Thank you. Next up is going to be, let's see. Next up is going to be Paul. Paul, go ahead.
Yeah. Hi, everybody. Thanks. We referenced one of us talked about sort of hymns and their spiritual music last week. And I want to read one of my own, but first, Rick, I just want to read 2 verses of a hymn. It's very short.
Sure.
Just to remind us of this power that faith can have, that it's hard to find, at least for some people, now that faith is out of style in some respects. And we talk about all the time in other meetups, but where are we going to get the same power that is in this song is my question. But the song is, it's a hymn called How Can I Keep From Singing? And I'll just read the first 2 verses. My life, and it's a beautiful song put to music, you can Google it, but my life flows on in endless song, above earth's lamentation. I hear the sweet, though far off hymn that hails a new creation. Through all the tumult and the strife, I hear the music ringing. It finds an echo in my soul. How can I keep from singing? That's one verse. I'll read just one more. This gets a little more Christian, but you can extract from it the truth of the faith. What though my joys and comforts die, the Lord my Savior liveth. What though the darkness gather round, songs in the night he giveth. No storm can shake my inmost calm, while to that rock I'm clinging. Since Christ is Lord of heaven and earth, how can I keep from singing? So it's just powerful, no matter what faith you are, in my opinion. But okay, thanks for letting me read that. Now I'll read one of my own.
Please.
Thank you. Here, let me get my, okay. By the way, Robert, thanks for reading about the heron. It's so sad. That's such a beautiful bird. Okay, here we go. I don't know what the title of this is either, sorry. Okay, I'm on the 4th floor. I study sound. I am notorious, known for explaining away the miraculous. I know the motives and the 4 basic compositional strategies the mockingbird employs as he mocks. I know I accidentally learned how the hummingbird can fly backwards, recording in slow motion the sound of the wings beating the air 110 times per second, and the simultaneous motion of the tail acting as a helicopter stabilizer X. I know the spectrum of each frequency and overtone and psychophysical effect produced by the church bell as it rings. My colleague below me knows the neural activity that generates each thought. His intellectual rival in Office 306 knows every experiment that has tried to find the human soul and failed. My tennis partner in the new annex is on intimate terms with the Big Bang. She knows the origin of the universe down to a timed history of every millisecond, every microsecond, every nanosecond, every no second when time did not exist. I have to admit that I don't know the people across the river who have identified the gene sequence that is a risk factor for colorectal cancer, but I feel like I know them. We are pretty amazing. And from our work, I once concluded we can extrapolate forward and know that all things currently considered miraculous will someday be found out not to be. That was then. Now my faith, in quotes, is broken. All I see are mechanistic explanations. Very useful to cure cancer, useless to explain, in quotes, anything. Underneath all the detail of how things work, a miracle still lives, still hides in plain sight, forever presented to us. No inner or outer space monitoring equipment needed, accessible with only the 5 senses, and forever so it shall be.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Paul. And I really like those hymns and would love to talk about it, after the breakout rooms. So Allison and Maritza, what shall we do in the breakout rooms this time? Sorry, Maritza, I caught you at the wrong time.
I was munching. Sorry. So we have a theme here today, Shrikant.
Mm-hmm.
Everything is kind of aligned. So I'm thinking maybe we should do something along the lines of the theme that we have here, and it's it seems to me, at least what I'm seeing is there's an ache, a collective ache, like a human longing that we're all expressing today. There's also a lot of chatter about it's interesting. So there's a human side, and then there's the aspect of the frailty of animals. I don't know where to go with that.
Sure.
What do you think, Allison?
Well, I thought of something that Mike wouldn't like. We could talk about how the poets are using figurative language to express the meaning of it. Like you could find just a few examples of something, not to get too technical, but
Sure.
but the thing is, like sometimes they're using repetition. I teach poetry, but sometimes they're using repetition. Sometimes it's similes, metaphors, alliteration.
Sure. How about this? Let's keep it. What we'll do is that Allison and Maritza, kind of going forward in the future breakout rooms, we'll try to come up with themes. But today, because we have not planned anything, let everybody talk about what they got from it, and then you can pick up any of these themes, and you can lead a discussion on that. And then, folks, when you come back, you can talk about whatever poems spoke to you. You can also talk about what poetry does for you. You can talk about any observations that you get from the breakout rooms. What we're trying to do is that we're trying to build Mondays as a way of appreciating poetry, appreciating what poetry can do for us. I particularly like the point that Paul made. They say, look at these hymns and look at the depth that is conveyed by that. And that's something that is actually missing in modern life. That's not a big part of modern life. So any kind of deep observations, we also want to develop our own capacity of artistic expression. Some of the people here write poems and some of us don't. So maybe we can learn something from those who can write poems. So especially for those who write poems, if you could share a little bit about, the experience of writing poems and what does it look like from the production side? When you come back, during the breakout rooms and, afterwards. All right, so I'm starting the breakout rooms now. They will last for about 20 minutes, after which we'll come back here to talk about these common themes. Starting the breakout rooms now. Welcome back, folks. All right, so it's time to share, what poems stood out to you, what you get from poetry. What is it like writing the poetry? Are there any points in the breakout room that really stood out for you? Any and all of these things are fair game. So go ahead and type exclamation mark if you would like to share. I mean, Marisa and I, what we want this Mondays to do is to explore the creative side, the artistic side, and see what both kind of production of art and appreciation of art looks like, and learn from each other about that. So go ahead and type exclamation mark if you would like to comment.
I
Go ahead.
can warm folks up here while they collect their
please.
thoughts.
Yes.
In our discussion, we chatted about many things, but I want to bring up one of the last things that we talked about, and that's the act of creating a poem memorializes a moment, a smell, a scent, an image, and every time you read it, you're transported back. It's like you can almost smell, like if it was a poem about coffee, you can smell the coffee, or it takes you right back. And that's fascinating in a way that, there's very little else that we will write is quite as strong. Like even if you journal every day and you put your, you bare your soul, going back to read it, it's not quite the same as when you write a poem. I'm not sure what the distinction is there, but that was something really interesting about the creative form that we discussed in our breakout room.
Wonderful, beautiful, beautiful observation that it memorializes experience. Right? Anybody else? Go ahead and type exclamation mark. This is quite flexible. So Steve, go ahead.
Jeff did a stirring rendition of the song Blowing in the Wind. And it reminded me when Sam Cooke heard that song, he said, why can't Black people write music like this? And he went home and he wrote, a change is gonna come. And it just shows that a song can inspire someone to their own creativity and try to outdo another songwriter and create a classic piece of work.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, Steve. Mike.
Yeah, I like the fact that people are reading their own poems. And so I was in the breakout room with Margaretha, and I had her poem in the chat, and I realized, and I picked up a couple of lines that just really hit me. And I think it's kind of cool that the poet is right here in front of me. So if there's something that I pick up and I sense that, how are you feeling, or what made you end the poem the way she did, I could just ask her, and then I can get, the author or the poet's response right here. So I think that was, that was really nice.
Wonderful. Thank you. Next up is Jeff, followed by Paul. Jeff. Jeff, you need to unmute.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
So Shrikant, I was feeling a little bit unsure about what I was going to share this evening, and I also had to get myself together kind of physically to do it. But the poem that I would like to share actually is a short song.
Please, please, please.
Would that be okay?
Oh, that would be wonderful. Go ahead.
Okay. The commentary for it is all in the introduction, and so I'll just share the introduction and then the song, and I'll be done. So thank you, Allison, for the invitation. So 30 years ago, this month, actually, I started the design and delivery. We actually went to Russia 30 years ago. A group of 4 of us who were offered the role of leading a program called New Leaders of Russia. And there were 20 Russians who were chosen from thousands that applied, who all had to be under 40. It was one of their rules, and they all had to speak perfect English. And so these 20 people were chosen, and there were 4 of us going to lead them, and we were going to be with them for 10 days at a time, 6 times over 2 years. And I was teaching business planning of all things, quite because I knew a little bit about business, and it was very, very powerful. I mean, of the 20 there, one of them started an organization which was basically the new organization for the National Organization of Women for Russia, and one of them figured out how to buy a TV and radio station, and one of them was a professor of economics at Moscow State University. It was a very deeply inspirational as well as powerful experience. And what we thought we were doing there, and we talked about it a lot, was that in our relationships with each other and them with each other, we were trying to build something that then would lead their nation and the United States and the world towards not having to do a Cold War again. And so it's very poignant, that we are where we are at this moment. We got to the end of the 2 years, and I'd become especially close friends with this one young man named Alex, who was going to start a business incubator program to help people start businesses. And Alex says at the end of this evening, where they shared their poems with us and songs and thank yous, it was so deep. And Alex says, "I have a song for you." And I don't know if you know this song. It's by Bob Dylan, and it's called "Blowing in the Wind." And so Alex got up and he performed this song for us. And then we sang. Because it was a training program, he passed out the words and we all sang it together again. I had to get it together to be able to do it. So I've got the words to the song here, and the guitar chords to it. It took me a while to put that together. So since Bob won the Nobel Prize for Literature for his writing, because it was considered as poetry, maybe that would be a high enough bar. How many roads must a man walk down before you call him a man? How many seas must the white dove sail before she sleeps in the sand? Yes, and how many times must the cannonballs fly before they're forever banned? The answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind. The answer is blowing in the wind. How many years can a mountain exist before it is washed to the sea? Yes, and how many years can some people exist before they're allowed to be free? Yes, and how many times can a man turn his head and pretend that he just doesn't see? The answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind. The answer is blowing in the wind. Yes, and how many times must a man look up before he can see the sky? Yes, and how many ears must one man have before he can hear people cry? Yes, and how many deaths will it take till he knows that too many people have died? The answer, my friend, blowing in the wind. The answer is blowing in the wind.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Jeff. Daniela, you wanted to say something.
No, that was very nice, Jeff. Thank you. I just wanted to ask Paul. Paul, the poetry you were reading before, it was touching. Did you write the second poem?
Paul, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Daniela. Yes, I totally did not write How Can I Keep From Singing. It's a hymn. I first thought it was sacred. It was not traditional. It was written by a minister. I can put out who wrote it. And then I wrote the thing that starts with I'm on the fourth floor and all that.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, no, I really, I found them touching.
Thank you. Well, it relates, all this relates. Can I just have my chance?
Please go ahead.
Yeah. Thank you, Danielle. But I'm sort of single-minded. So tonight's theme is like, I'm in that crisis of faith that started, I think Jordan Peterson said, in the Renaissance, in the Enlightenment. Like, I don't think we've really figured it out yet. And I think that I like what Jeff said about, in our breakout room, Jeff said that his mother was a devout atheist, but we were talking about how do you find meaning when the chips are down? Because poems tonight were about that. And Jeff said his mother had some serious chips down immigrating from Europe with $2, and she was a total atheist. So it also makes me think, I'm not saying that there's no, and I don't mean to diss science. I love science. You could tell how I wrote about it in the poem. I get a huge kick out of it. But if the chips are down and your house is blowing up, like Joe was describing, science is empty. Science is not a rock on which you can stand. And I was trying to write about that. And that's all I really want to say is that theme keeps coming up. And the last thing I'll say about it is I Googled Dylan, because of course I know Dylan all the way back, Jeff. And here's what Dylan went through. He became a born-again Christian. He was originally Jewish. And his most recent songs from just a few years ago are a giant mix. Like, here's a major artist and songwriter who just can't figure out where he's going to find his meaning. I'll read you a few verses from my own version of You just a couple years ago. 79 years old, still releasing albums. I'm going to make you play the piano like Leon Russell, like Liberace, like St. John the Apostle. I'll play every number that I can play. I'll see you maybe on Judgment Day. And after meeting, if in midnight, if you still want to meet, I'll be in Black Horse Tavern on Armageddon Street. You guys are studying John, I think, right now. 2 doors down, not that far a walk. I'll hear your footsteps. You won't have to knock. I'll bring someone to life, balance the scales. I'm going to get involved in any insignificant details. You bring it to St. Peter. You can bring it to Jerome. You can bring it all the way over, bring it all the way home. So he's still trying to figure it out, is my point. And writing so beautifully about it. And so am I. So I'll leave it at that.
Wonderful. So Paul, I do want to pick up on this theme. So we'll go to Maritza, and then I want to I want to elaborate on this theme, the theme that you brought up about the hymns and the power of hymns. Margaretha.
I was going to propose the theme of, when a poem is a song and a song is a poem. But because I find that many songs, if they're written with substance and have more than 3 words, they tend to be very poetic, very much like poems. And often the reverse is true. Many poems can read like songs. It's an interesting thing about, Allison asked about metaphor. And what I was thinking was that, poems, and then Mike Amori had said, poems are very, very honest. But I think they're both. There's nothing so honest as a poem, but there's also nothing so sneaky as a poem, because you can bear your entire soul in a poem, and you can do so in a manner that is filled with metaphor and innuendo. And so you're bearing your soul without doing so directly. But a neat thing about coming together here is that even if it's a poem that someone has not seen more than once or twice before they show up and read it, they chose it. It's a poem that spoke to them among the many millions, and somehow that comes through in their reading of it. So in that sense, a poem, more so than the poem itself being the honest thing, it brings out a natural candor of the person, like a little bit of us kind of unravels and is revealed as we read a poem, even if it's not a poem we ourselves read. A little bit stronger when it's a poem that we created. But I see it, and even like, even a song, Jeff just read a song, and, the words to that song, just like a poem, or even more than some other poems that I've read, it just reached in and like squeezed my heart. It's one of those, it really, you just can't help but feel. That's something that poetry does for us. It makes us feel. And today we have like every poem, every song, today there's a theme. And I feel like there's like, we all are passing along needle and thread, and we're creating this beautiful tapestry together today. And it's longing and sad and lonely, but also hopeful and wistful and just beautiful.
Wonderful, Margaretha. So I'm going to pick up on the theme that you started out with, and then I'm going to combine it with the theme that Paul brought up about the power of hymns. And I'm going to combine it with the meetup that we are doing on Bhagavad Gita. So let me start by saying something in defense of 3-word poems. Okay, you're saying unless it is 3 words, okay? So let me start with that and Bhagavad Gita. So Bhagavad Gita in the chapter 17 says that the entire of Gita can be summarized in 3 words. Okay, the words are Om, Om, Tat, Sat. Okay, so let me describe. So this is to show you the power of words and power of sounds. You were talking about the musicality. So these, when you say Om Tat Sat, Om Tat Sat, there is a sound to it. The sound Om starts with A, U, and M. A represents creation. It is your burgeoning awakening of your consciousness. In Indian tradition, it's Brahma, which is the god of creation. U, and is a sound that is produced up here. The oo sound moves to the chest, and reverberates in your belly. So you're kind of moving the sound down like this in it's a single syllable, om. But so is creation. Oo focuses on the eternal, the thing that remains constant throughout. It's the Tao, it's the Krishna, it is the Vishnu, the God of sustenance, the thing that remains constant. And is Shiva, which is the God of destruction and transformation of the world. So there is this creation, and this is what we do. We start to create by opening ourselves up to the possibility of creation. We use eternal principles, and we actually do things in the world which transform it. So in that, it is reminding you of that entire sequence of who we are and what we do in just one syllable. Okay, so it's not 3 syllables, it's 1 syllable. But then what are these other 2? Om, tat means that. That means pay attention to this threefold nature of existence. So tat means it's pointing you. And sat is saying that it is true. So you're saying that, so this is entire philosophy. Om captures the nature of universe and nature of human beings. Tat means that. So you're directing your attention to that. And sat is you're accepting the truth of it and the goodness of it as a starting point. So you remind yourself. So it's not a mechanical thing. I used to think, see, I'm not religious. So for me, discovering this, so this is like holding your entire philosophy in 3 words. And when you're actually saying it, you're not saying it mechanically. You're going through the meaning of it. So you say it as you would mean it. And it echoes in your entire body. And the really beautiful thing, my friend Yogeshwar, who helps us with the Bhagavad Gita meetups, is that when you say Om, you're breathing out. And then when you're breathing in, you're hearing that come from the universe back. So you are hearing the same sound. You're saying that is actually the nature of life. So you're letting that break in upon you, and then you are saying it again. So in that single cycle of just Om Tat Sat, you're capturing all of your philosophy, all of the things that you need to pay attention to, this one thing. And this is another example of the power of him. So I wanted to put that example down. Now I want to open it up for any comments. Paul, go ahead.
Yeah, just a quick question, Shrikant, because having been through my share of descriptions of Eastern thought and meditations and kirtans and things, no one ever told me about the second 2 words. So I just think into the Western world where Om became like really every 3rd person is saying it, they don't go on to the next 2 words. It's just interesting.
It's part of, it's from Bhagavad Gita, chapter 17, verses 23 to 28. See,
Okay.
what happens is exactly what happens to the hymns. What
Yeah.
happens to religion in the West? See, we are
Yeah.
studying John. Okay, we are studying Gospel of John.
Yeah.
In the beginning was the Word. And that, for people who have been studying, who are religious all their life, they are saying, what? That is what it means. Like people like Aquinas takes that and he has a 40-page essay on, in the beginning was the Word. That's
Mm.
it. How deep is that?
Mm.
Okay, because when you're saying, consider this, because it's the same power. When it is saying, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. In that, he was in the beginning with God. That much, okay, that much. Look at the poetry of it. Look at the power of it. What it is saying is that it is God thinking about himself using the word. In that description, there is the description of three things. There is a description of existence, consciousness, and with what you're capturing the consciousness of existence, all captured out. And it is a word. Initially, it is a word that is a notion in the consciousness of God. And then it will be spoken out. It will become flesh. Everything will come from it. So look at the
So
power of it.
you're connecting the two concepts, are you not? The Om and the, okay, yeah.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is that Om, like the way in which
Yeah.
Indian thought says, in the beginning was Om. That is the primordial sound from which everything. So it is the same idea that word created everything. Om is the start. So for example, the chapter we just finished studying, chapter 7, is called Akshar Brahma Yoga. Akshar means that which is eternal. It is also what a letter is called. A letter, like alphabet, like A, is called letter, Akshar. So he's saying that the word is eternal because it contains, captures existence in consciousness and expresses it. And that's what life is about. So look at the sheer power of both these works. The way in which Tao puts it is Tao ke Tao, Fei Chang Tao. Ming ko Ming, Fei Chang Ming. That is the beginning of Tao Te Ching. What is it saying? Tao, which can be named, is not the real Tao. The names are not eternal. So what it is saying is that all these names are trying to get, the words are trying to get at reality. Don't forget the reality. Om is a sound that pertains to things which can't be fully named. You have to know that you are, the way in which Naneshwar, the commenter that he is using, is that it's saying it's like an infant. You know, when an infant is born, it has no name. It is something of itself, and you have to respect its nature. You give it a name and it responds to it. That name you have created and it will respond to it. But infant has its own nature, just like reality has its own nature. And you have to keep that distinction. Do not mistake the name for that. So all these three in various ways are talking, but coming back to your point, now in three different texts, just the beginnings of it, look at the conciseness, look at the range of thought which is being captured by the words. I present to you, that is poetry. That is really, really powerful poetry. And for me, that is calibrating what can be. In modern times, we have lost the ability. We capture things, but only a little bit here and there. This kind of deep capturing of things, which was common in all these three traditions before modern times, in what is called the scribal times, before print, where people actually went back and forth. They actually talked about the words as we are doing. And all of that conversation went back into richer appreciation of the words. The words are valued, words are crafted. Enormous amount of time is spent on them. That tradition, the scribal tradition. So the characteristic that you're looking for of the hymns belongs to the scribal age, because what that age does is that words there are fully connected with the entire life experience, and it speaks to your emotions, it speaks to your intellect, it motivates your action. They are social beings that live between people and make interaction possible, and all of it is being done by those words. So that is a power of those words. Go ahead, Paul.
Oh, well, I want to recognize you, Srikant, and say, what you're doing then is you're helping the modern human find meaning and saying it's okay. You don't have to think the only version of truth is the little pieces that you talk about that we put together in the modern world. And you're opening the door for people who are very thoughtful, and I would like to hear what Jeff's mother would have to say to this. I'll let him follow that one up, but you're trying to get people who've been sort of programmed to think you shouldn't have faith. And you're trying to show them the knowledge of the past. That's a mission I feel you now have. That's
yes,
beautiful.
I mean,
So
yeah,
thank you.
exactly. I mean, the way this is part of what this organization, there is an organization that it's called the Center for the Study of Digital Life. There's a guy called Mark Stallman. And I got this idea, I mean, this kind of conceptualization from him, saying that different ages, different stages of technology, like oral stage, scribal stage, print stage, television stage, digital stage, has its own way of thinking, and it has its limitations and its power, and they're different. And so whenever you're looking at some work, you have to say, okay, what kind of sensibility is this rooted in? And what we are trying to do is that we're trying to bring back this scribal mentality. Like if you look at all these three works, they are at a time where before print and after writing, where people like Aristotle's Peripatetic School, Aquinas University of University of Paris, the Gurukuls in India, where teachers taught, or Lao Tzu talking to his students, or Zen masters like Dogen talking to his students with koans. But there is this back and forth of conversation integrated with writing. I mean, that's what we are doing here. We're taking written materials and we are talking about it so that we can actually appreciate it far more deeply. And the conversation part is a crucial part. So that's absolutely, you got it. That's exactly what I'm trying to do. But we are all trying to do. All right, folks, more comments. Let's see, Allison, go ahead.
Yeah, I just put it in there because my voice is a mess. I feel like, so I used to write a lot of poetry when I was younger, and then I stopped, and I do teach writing poetry and analyzing it. And I think what I have found teaching it is that people generally, they either love writing like expository fiction or they love writing poetry. And it's like one group and the other group, and rarely do they cross. It's kind of interesting that way. And I've noticed this for years. But what I think, I keep thinking like, why did I stop? But I think because I just was putting all my creative energy into dance and didn't have space to come home from that and do something else. But I think the thing is, what we've lost is that I really think it's like since cameras came about, because a camera can capture the world. So before we used to use the words to try to capture the world. But I feel like just in general, and I think a lot of it kind of relates to modernism, because you see this stripping down, like the modern buildings lost the ornamentation, and our language has lost a lot of the ornamentation. So I feel like, you know, like using figurative language, like the best poetry really plays with the words. It doesn't take it too seriously. And there's just, it's like a game to play with it and tease it and figure out what you can create with the sound of it. And but what's interesting is I feel like musicians probably do it more now than I mean, there's some poets like Amanda Gorman's amazing, but in general, our language is very, very simple and spare. But I do think that actually, I think rap music does it probably better than anybody. You know, they love to, you know, play with the sound, and I don't know what to do to bring it back, but yeah.
Yeah, no, that's very interesting. I mean, we can look at like different ages. Like you can look at, I would divide it into 3 phases. I mean, one is, I would use Scribble as the base. I'm always thinking of Scribble as the base because it is very integrative. All the words are integrated into life, integrated into all the other senses, emotions, intellect, virtue, everything is kind of wrapped up together with it. In case of print, it kind of separates out because the book is kind of separate from the person and you are reading it separately. So it tends to become more analytical and it loses this kind of emotive quality to it. Television tries to bring back the emotive quality and the orality, like almost the oral culture, but it doesn't have the foundation that the oral culture had of the society, of the community. Whereas, so you kind of actually pretend that you are part of the sitcom and these are your friends, but they are not your friends. And they're all designed to sell you ads. So it's like, it's a very odd thing, the television. And I think with digital, what has happened is that you can pretty much go back and binge on anything you want. You can binge on print, you can binge on TV with YouTube, print with, you know, all the text that is out there, or you can get Scribble and oral, whatever you want. And it's really going to be interesting to see what is it that people choose and in what proportions. So wonderful. I want to follow up on Maritza's point about songs and poetry. So any thoughts about music and poetry? Hi, Rupali, welcome. So any thoughts about songs and poetry?
2 quick points, Shrikant, if I may. When I said 3 words, in my defense, I meant the songs, and I was thinking specifically of Spanish. In Spanish, there's been a growing trend over the last 20 years to, instead of creating music, well, sure, they're creating something, but there's like literally 3 words that repeat over and over, and it's not enough to quite, it doesn't create, and it makes me very sad because I used to think that, you know, I used to sit superior thinking that Spanish music did a better job of being poetic, right? Yeah, that's not true anymore, but I don't know if it ever was true, my bias, right? But it's stories. I'm always baffled when somebody says, oh, I just listen for the music. I can't imagine hearing a song and not hearing the words. Sometimes, you know, it's a catchy beat, and so you might enjoy it despite the lack of good verbiage. But somewhere that hits my radar, and the song that can manage to either evoke words and emotions and images without actual words, or a song that tells a story is, it's fascinating. Like I was introduced to country music when I was in my teens, mid-teens, and I was fascinated because country music, maybe the beats are slightly more simple, but the imagery that they give you in these songs is just amazing. And it tells a story in their own way, the culture of country music and folk music. It's giving you their ancestry and it's telling you where they're coming from, when they're coming from, or it paints, like one of my absolute favorite country music songs is the depiction of an auction house place where this guy fell in love. And I will.
Garth Brooks, right?
Yes, I love Garth Brooks, right? But now, just so you know, if you guys are ever out with me and have the misfortune of this song coming on the radio, I can, and I do, sing every last word.
Are you going to sing it now?
I am not. No, absolutely not. I would not do that to Jeff. It would be sacrilege. There's no way. But yeah, it's it's just the imagery that is pulled through, and Spanish music does that also quite a bit. Something somebody said to me once about a decade ago, maybe almost 20 now. Somebody said to me, as I'm learning Spanish, I'm realizing that your people say the ugliest things in the most beautiful of ways. And I was like, do we? And when he started saying to me, well, okay, translate this song. I was like, oh, crap, he's right. It's so the way the cultures are, music is a oral tradition that has survived even in a time where we have digital and TV. I mean, now it's digital also, but there still exists within a thread of almost every musical genre. It's that telling of tales that's being passed from one to the other. And that's, I don't know, it's kind of like what you had the I forget what they called the guy, what was he? The guy who wrote the lyrics, who traveled with, the bard, he wrote the lyrics, he traveled. It's kind of, some form of that exists today. And what is a bard but someone who puts music to their poetic lyrics? And they do so using their lyrics to weave a historical tale with some liberty. And that's cool.
Yeah. And each of the genres are different. Like, for example, you're talking about Garth Brooks, right? So Garth Brooks or country music in general, they do such a great job of making a context come alive, like a physical context come alive. And they talk about the emotions that are rooted in that physical context. So it could be like, so like this auction song. So it's like it is done in sounds, it is done kind of across the board, at various levels, but just making the physical context come alive is a huge thing. All right, so folks, thoughts about song, like music and poetry. I think it's a very deep topic. Any thoughts? And Paul, I mean, the kind of I really like your point about the hymns. And Mike, go ahead.
Okay, continue, Shrikant.
Wait a minute. Mike is going to be talking about value of music on Wednesday. So tell me, Mike, what is the value of music and how is it related to poetry?
I'll do my comment first, and then I'll talk about the music,
Sure.
if you don't mind. So this came up in the breakout room that poetry and music both have the ability to make one blush. And what I mean by that, they both have the ability to pull emotion out that you cannot stop. And I find that very interesting because you can fake a smile. You can, I don't know, there are some people, really trained actors, who can actually make themselves cry. But for the average person, when you hear a song, like, what is it that actually brings you back to when you were 13 or 14 years old? Just hearing a song, and you either have a tear or a smile that just boom pops out. And I think those two have in common. And again, I had first mentioned I knew next to nothing about poetry, but I've been taken aback a few times being here in these initial meetups. So what causes that? You know, I find poetry and music both have that ability to just pull it out. Wednesday, if any of you
Please.
can come, I'm coming up on my year anniversary here at 52 Living Ideas, and I kind of took a moment to reflect on what am I getting out of all this? Like, what is the purpose? And I kind of went through a reflection where I pretended that you or somebody else here gave me an assignment, because it's a Comprehensivist Wednesday, and to try to force myself to think of a topic that I could break down into parts that somebody who is thinking comprehensively would say, wow, you know, this guy's talking about music, but I am pulling away mathematics, you know, because I understand the keyboard, for example. And then somebody who has a background in emotional intelligence could just stop and talk about, again, like what I was just saying, pulling emotion out, and on and on. And so what I actually did, so you talked about writing things down. So I'll give two big things that influenced me here at 52 Living Ideas. And I'm looking at Jeff and I'm looking at you. And so Shrikant, you almost in every meetup, you hold up a pen and you say to everybody here, I'm going to give you something that's 3,000 years old. It's a pen and a paper, start taking notes. And many of us here have talked about the value of asking the right questions, but Jeff had been the one that influenced me the most. So what I actually did is I sat down with a piece of paper and I wrote the word music in the middle. That's it. And it was painstaking at first, but I would take half-hour blocks and sit there with nothing but my thoughts and a pen and begin to start taking that word. And initially it was because of my background in music. It was very easy to think about things I would want to talk about. But with a little bit of thought, I started to ask questions, as Jeff would say. And I came up with one. For example, I put this in the intro. How is it possible for a human being to whistle in key? So if I whistle the following, what did I just whistle? Did it come through?
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Yes.
Was I in key?
Yes.
So I understand the mechanics of what makes my lips purse and what makes the airflow go through. But there has to be a neuroscience link between what's making that note come out in key. I had never thought of that before I went through this process. So what I'm going to do is somehow I'm going to narrow down to 25 or 30 minutes, the different branches that I took from thinking about those 5 letters called music and where it took me. And then looking at everybody here saying, wow, what if I took the rest of the meetup and had them ask a question and see where it took them and where it could spring out. So I'm really excited. I hope I framed it right, but that's the approach I'm hoping to take on Wednesday.
No, I love it. And what we will do is that we will use, because no matter how good you are, Mike, everybody put together their experience of music and how they approach it, because it's very personal and they will approach it in their own way. So what I'm hoping to do is that I'm now imagining your page where you have music in the beginning, in the middle, and you have all of these things. So what I want to do, I can see it.
I can show it to you.
Oh, please, please.
So these are just the notes that came from the meditative, like just writing without any technology. And I spent about an hour looking some things up at the end, but this is basically, I don't know if you can you see it?
It's too close. You need to move it back so that we can see the entire page. Move it back.
What I can do, there you go.
Yeah. Perfect.
So I can just read, I'll give you an example. So, and this is not complete, but history. So some history.
No. We'll go into details, but what I'm going to do is that after, during the breakout rooms, I will, if you could actually put this take a photo of it and send it to me and share it so people can actually see it.
Absolutely.
And what I will do is that I will take that on my iPad, and then I will map everything everybody else is saying onto
Great.
that.
Great.
And so it will, I'm telling you, it's going to be filled up, and it is going to become so amazing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wonderful. Let's see, Paul, go ahead. I'm really looking forward to this meetup. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. That sounds very interesting, Mike. And just to answer your question, Chicago, one more follow-up thought on hymns. It ties a lot of what you just sort of went through about oral traditions, because remember, I read you a poem. If you permit me for like 30 seconds to play,
please,
that poem manifested,
please,
from a singer named Eva Cassidy, who makes me cry from every note she sings, because it gets at Maritza's point that you're getting a piece of the person when they interpret it, and they interpret it with melody, and then they interpret it in a group where the whole group pulls the energy out. That's what we're talking about, Srikant. So here's Eva Cassidy. Please. I posted the link in there. I hope you can hear it just by playing it on my computer. Let me know if it doesn't work.
Go ahead.
Okay, I don't know if you could hear that, but.
Very well, very well.
Okay, I'm getting a chill just listening to her. Check out her music. I posted the link. She makes me cry because she's a story of herself. She died of cancer very young. But anyway, there's the power we're talking about, Srikant. The words combined with the melody, combined with the crowd, that's a live performance.
Absolutely. I mean, another way of putting it, the best form in which somebody has captured this in words is by Walter Ong. He's written a book on orality and literacy. So he starts by saying that all text is pretext. And to complete it, it is pretext because it is missing the context. Text actually rides on massive amount of context. When somebody is singing that entire context comes in, especially the typical way in which the singing would be done in those contexts, in these scribal contexts, would be you would be in a group. The person in the middle will be singing, and other people, you would be singing too. And the character of the person would be there. What they feel about that music would be there. The sound would be hitting your emotions. You would be singing. You would see all the other people having the same variety of emotion. It's almost like symphony of emotions playing in that group. And all of that is what those words were meant to capture and reproduce. So that's what it is. So thank you for bringing that up. And in many ways, that's what we are doing. When we are looking at Bhagavad Gita, when we are looking at the Gospel of John, when we are looking at Tao Te Ching, that is what we're trying to bring back and trying to say, okay, what does it mean for us today? Because these are very deeply human. And so in some ways we have lost that. We have lost our humanity. And this is a way of getting it back. So, all right, folks, thank you so much. And I'm very, very excited about this meetup. Oh, sorry, Joe, go ahead.
No, I just was going to add that, that's a really important thing when you're talking about moving into the digital age, because I don't think we've actually really figured out how we're going to interact with technology going forward. So recapturing that human spirit is going to be critical for our own personal survival, to be quite honest, because I still don't think we understand the full impact of these.
Yes.
I mean, it just is one example, but I mean, there are other examples coming down the pike. So this is something that, I mean, Mark's addressing that obviously in a very deep way, but no, that's something that's exciting. that's a really important point. What we're recapturing and what it means is actually these things that are uniquely human. They were survival mechanisms that we still need in many cases. So
Absolutely. And I mean, for me personally, these meetups, 52 Living Ideas, have made me more human, I think. Because it's just, thanks to you guys, thanks to these amazing people who show up and share about who they are from the bottom of their heart. They share their own kind of consciousness, their own view of the world, their own kind of style of consciousness. So to be able to interact at this level, in this quantity, with this depth, with so many people, I have never been able to do that before. Okay, so for me, this is just wonderful. I mean, I think I'm more human as a result of this. So Margaretha.
Yeah, I think in light of optimism, regardless, the challenge comes from technology, and also this in modern era where people are driven out by the rationalism. But those who have the needs for art, either music, text, script, lyrics, we will find ways to surround us with that, because those are the air that we need. So in fact, technology can be used to become more human, like you, Srikan. I also use this. Otherwise, I will stuck in my room just doing my work. So, and it's good to see with other people who have this spirit of enjoying the spirit of because of arts, and we share it. But I also agree with you, Srikan. Those are pretexts in terms of voice, smell, taste and everything, which when we share with other people, we are excited to share it with other people, but other people, when they receive it, they will create a new meaning. So it's like a seed, you give it away, but it will form in different format, in different meaning, interpretation for other people. And that's the beauty of sharing arts, including music and poetry. Yeah, thank you for sharing, guys.
Absolutely. I want to recommend a meetup that I did with my friend Yasuhiko this Saturday. It was just incredible. It's called, Joe, if you could put a link to it, would appreciate that. It was called Autodidactic Polymathic Spirituality. And the point he was making is a very deep point. He's saying that the technology that we have, actually, if you're seeking something, however complex, what we can actually achieve is so much more than what we could do. Like we are talking about, good old times, we can have the same thing that the people in good old times had, but in so much more richness and complexity and quantity. I mean, it's just mind-boggling. So there are problems, obviously, in the modern age, but the potential of the modern age is tremendous. And I'm really, really pleased and very grateful to all of you folks who have helped us, help me, learn about this. So thank you very much. And we will see you soon. Bye, everybody. Good night.